Welcome back to the Owner Seat Podcast, the show for operators, franchisees, and founders who don't just want growth, they want clarity, credibility, and businesses that last. Today's episode is about something most multi-unit operators learn the hard way. Brands are built nationally, but loyalty is built locally. And if you're trying to drive top-line growth in 2026, you don't need one big marketing idea. You need relentless local execution, a team that can deliver the member experience every day, and operational discipline that holds across markets. My guest today, you've probably heard of her and have seen her all over LinkedIn and articles and PR. She's everywhere. Stephanie Altenburger, founder and CEO of Thrive Venture Group, a multi-state health and wellness portfolio operating, listen to this, over 28 Orangetheory Fitness studios across 3 states. And she's built that platform with a relentless focus on culture, accountability, and studio performance systems. Stephanie isn't marketing theory. She's an operator. Take a look at what she posts about and her people and what they do day in and day out. She leads strategic direction, financial performance, acquisitions, KPI management, love that, sales and retention systems, and leadership development across the portfolio. And what makes this conversation especially valuable to you, the owner, Stephanie has scaled with a clear point of view. People first, the team member experience, standards always, and local connection as the growth engine. Today, we're going behind the scenes on what actually drives growth in multi-unit fitness, local marketing, team execution, culture at scale, acquisitions. I could go on and on. There's going to be a ton of gems in this conversation. Stephanie, welcome to the Owner Seat Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I've been following you. You're everywhere, all throughout the country. I mean, what I love about you, though, we've had a couple chats now, and I follow you on LinkedIn. I love how much focus you have on the team member experience. I'm sure they all love to work with you, your husband, the team. And I just love that about you. I love that you're very intense about what you do, but it all starts with people. So it's really cool to
Thank
see
you.
your journey. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Well, let's go back. Take us back to the first studio that you ever started, because I'm sure this has been a journey, a nice roller coaster, as it always is for owners that come on the show and share the story. What did you learn in year one that still shows up today? Is it 28 or are you guys, I mean, what's the plan there, by the way? I'm sure it's more than that now.
Well, so we just merged a studio, so 27 studios, and we're in the
Gotcha.
middle of a couple acquisitions now. So, our
Excellent.
hope is in the near future to be well into the 30 studio range.
My goodness, that's amazing. Well, take us
Yeah.
back to Studio One and now going up to 30. I mean, what has changed? What hasn't changed?
Yeah, I think, well, I know year one really taught me that nothing replaces being close to the business, right? You don't really have the luxury of hiding behind reports or hiding behind any individual people. Like you feel everything in real time, right? You feel every missed sale, you feel every cancellation, you feel every staffing gap because you are the human, right? And so what stuck with me navigating from studio 1 to 6 to 10 to 12 to 32 at our highest was that the fundamentals, honestly, they never change. Energy in the studio in our world is what truly matters. The member experience matters, the staff experience matters. Not one is more important than the other. They're equally important to focus on a consistent basis. And speaking of consistency, consistency is what matters more than anything. And so
Yeah.
as we scaled from 1 to 32, sometimes it's easy to drift into complexity. Like it's very easy to overcomplicate things. And I truly believe that the best operators focus on simplification and they simplify back to what truly actively drives results. And it's in our world, it's great coaching, it's strong sales behaviors, which you mentioned being local out in the business. That's part of
Right.
that. And the third one is disciplined follow-up amongst each other, but with our members and with our non-members that are out there that we want to bring into the Orange Theory system. So even today, running nearly 30 studios, we still operate with that same mindset. We're not perfect by no means, but it is like our mantra, and it's what we focus on a daily basis. We do it through people, systems, and at the end of the day, structure, instead of me doing it all myself, right? When I had one studio alongside my husband, like it was us. And so now we have a team of people that are riding along the ride with us, and focused on all of those really important things to move the business forward, and continuing to scale us beyond 27 and 30 studios.
I love it. People, system, structure, consistency, and scaling. Let's talk about that. You've scaled through acquisitions. Sounds like you have a couple more coming up here soon. You've been very disciplined, and I've seen your post about this and have listened to some of your previous conversations or articles written around just the measurables. You're constantly measuring, as you mentioned just now. What's the difference between just opening studios and what you're doing, building a real operating platform?
Yeah, so I think to simplify the question, opening studios is really growth, right? It's growing. But when you build a platform, it's really about discipline. And so when you're in a platform and you're building a platform, it really means that, you can do things like predict outcomes. It means that your results aren't dependent on one rock star on your team, whether that's a general manager, a strong coach. It's systems, like I said earlier. It's leadership layers and how you structure your org chart. And ultimately, I think it comes down to accountability that you can replicate across markets. I'm in 3 states currently. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, but the way in which we can layer our leadership to make sure that our culture and our expectations stay tried and true across Thrive is really important. And I think so that's what I mean by building a platform is more on discipline. We have clear KPIs, and we've built out a really strong regional leadership team. And like I said it before, creating consistency in how we run the business. So to some extent, Cleveland should look like Arkansas. Arkansas should look like West
Hmm.
Virginia, and West Virginia
Mm,
should look like
I love
Columbus,
that.
and so forth. There's nuances to each market,
Sure.
but at the foundation of it all, though all of those markets should function in the same way with the same structure, so that way we can build momentum and keep going.
Yeah. A lot of the brands that I help out there or those that reach out, one of the biggest things, regardless if it's finance or ops or what have you, or just the platform or the portfolio in general, is that they just lack systems. They lack that discipline. I love you figured it out. So why don't you give us some best practices or some measurables? You mentioned some here at the top, but when you talk about operator excellence or even culture, like what have you learned from one to almost to 32 being at your high point? What have you learned to be your non-negotiables?
Well, I think operator excellence is consistency at a high level. I think if my team were on this call right now or listening to this in this moment, they would say, there's the C word again. We talk about consistency a lot. It's not always about spikes. It's about repeatability week after week, studio after studio. It shows in how we manage our KPIs. It shows in how we coach our teams. And I've been talking to the team a lot recently about just protecting our standards. I find that sometimes too, as you scale, it can be a little bit more challenging to focus in on the details and protect what made Orange Theory, and what has made Thrive Thrive. So our non-negotiables are pretty simple. There's really four. Strong member experience first and foremost. Disciplined sales process, which includes grassroots marketing. This one may sound funny, but clean and organized studios. Like
Yeah,
nothing is
I
more
love that.
important than coming into our facility and feeling like you're in a premium brand, and leaders who own their numbers, like owning your space, being involved, being part of the conversation, collaborating. So those are really our non-negotiables, which obviously have legs. But those are our pillars. That's what we kind of stand behind. And when we walk into a studio every day, those are the lenses that we look through.
It's excellent. Well, I want to go to that pillar two around the marketing piece. You mentioned I think it was in a recent chat or article, that The digital experience is great. It creates awareness, but it's the local connection, boots on the
Mm.
ground that actually builds that trust. So, what are some of the things that you do? And apologies, we're trying to steal your secrets here because you're killing it. What are those
Well,
three local marketing tactics that you use, maybe that are common amongst the three markets that are three states that you're in? What do you all do?
yeah, so I actually just came from a multi-unit franchise conference just 2 weeks ago, and this was actually one of the panels that I sat on.
That's right.
And one of the things I talked about, and we talked about as a team, all representing different brands, was that, digital gets you in front of people. It creates awareness, right? Like you said, in our space specifically, but I think in many, many brands, conversation happens through human connection inside the studio and in the community. And Orange Theory built this brand off of human connection. 15, 16 years ago, when you saw Orange Theory out in the community, you saw us in orange tutus and orange bikes and all the things like drawing attention to get us to have a conversation. And that's why I think grassroots and partnerships matter so much now more than ever, because there's so much noise out in the system. There's so many options, right? And people are trying to make the best decision for them with the knowledge that they have. And it really comes down to trust and building trust with people so they feel like you're a trusted partner with them on their journey. Health and wellness right now, I think for a lot of people is top of mind, as it should be. It always should have been, but there's a lot more conversation now, and people are looking for who their partner in longevity is going to be. And at Orange Theory and at Thrive, like that's who we are. And so it starts with building trust and having human connection with people. And that's why my team is so hyper focused. We always have been, but we navigated the climate of COVID and all of the things and the restrictions that held us back from being able to stay consistent with those things. And, when the tape came off, it came about like, how do you respectfully get back into the market and get in front of people and talk to people about who we are? And I think that operators who win don't rely on one channel. They layer digital with real and local connection. And when you do that repeatedly and more people see you in all of the markets, the more people will give you a chance and come and, test out your
Try
product.
it
And we
out.
know that
Yeah.
when people walk in our door, they love it.
I,
They love the energy, they love the people, they love the product, and it works.
I
So
love me a
that
good
was the
Orange
entire
Theory
thing.
Fitness workout. I love those
Yeah.
workouts. They're so good.
But you know
They're so
people,
good.
right? Like you're in the studio, you know the staff, they know you, they know what's happening in your world. And that's what builds brand affinity, right? And
Yeah.
we talked about this in our panel was brand affinity is people saying, I choose you as my business. I choose you as my gym. I choose you as my hairstylist, right? Like brand affinity is what we chase on a daily basis, but that isn't built through digital, that it's built through grassroots marketing and human connection.
So I'm curious because I get this a lot whenever I speak about, because I do want to talk about the measurables of marketing. Like how are you measuring all of the local grassroots marketing that you're doing in addition to that brand fund? How is it leading to, can you see it when you look at your dues performance, your member acquisition? So that's number one. But the other thing is I get a lot of feedback. We have this brand fund, don't necessarily know how it's doing. It's like this national kind of push, really isn't this local push. I just get a lot that they don't know what to do. It's just a generic marketing push. I don't know how to do it from a local personality of us and what we do in the community. What would you say to that?
So again, I truly believe it does go back to layers. And I do think that the brand fund is an important layer. I think depending on what franchisor you're with in a franchise system, it's important that there's transparency and visibility into what's happening with the brand fund. We have that at Orange Theory and especially as part of the FAC, we're a part of that conversation. So the brand fund is important. The franchisor obviously controls the brand fund. That's one layer of it. But there is expectation on how you invest in your brand locally. And depending on whether you're one or multiple franchisees in a market, it's really important that all franchisees in the market work together. We've formed co-ops and so forth in the past.
Oh, I like that. I've never heard of that. That's great.
Yeah, and using local co-ops to be able to market.
Mm.
Example, in Cleveland, we have our Thrive Studios, and we also have our franchisee studios that are not owned by us. They're supported by us, but they're not owned by us. And we're not mutually exclusive. Like, we're one team, owned
Yeah,
and operated by different individuals. But how do we all work together to make sure that in the Cleveland market, Orangetheory is a destination of choice for fitness? And so co-ops are also another really great and effective tool that does require collaboration and does require, everyone working together. But those are really great ways also to continue to market your business and to see growth. And we do see it. I think depending on the CRM and the tools that you're using, we can measure grassroots marketing better now than we've ever been able to measure it before.
great. Yeah.
Back in the day, we used an Excel spreadsheet. We wrote down people's names, and then we
Just follow the
noted
journey.
whether or not they converted, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
God, it was so archaic. And so, but in today's world, being able to manage that and being able to look, I tell the team all the time, measure what truly matters,
Yeah.
because measuring creates the change, right? Like, you can't change what you don't measure. And so now we can measure that more than ever. And I would say, just because we go to an event, if we don't leave with the quantity of leads that we wanted, it doesn't mean it was a bad event. I think sometimes you have to do things over and over and over again before you get, what could be a really great result. People need to see you consistently, not
Yeah.
just one time and hoping that that's the silver bullet to 100 plus leads.
So let's talk about that. So you do the right actions, all of you listening and watching, you take some of these best practices that Stephanie's laying out there, and you start to see an increase in leads. And Stephanie, you see the leads, they come in, they walk through the door. What are your expectations? You mentioned a disciplined sales process, onboarding process. I think you even chatted about it recently around those first 14 days, whether it's someone trying you or they become a member. I've been saying retention is key in 2026. Probably
Mm,
always is, but definitely in
mhm.
26, as there's so many options, as we were mentioning earlier. What are your expectations through that process? Someone walks in the door, what happens?
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think retention, for me, tells me that we're doing the right things. And like I said earlier, brand affinity is it, right? I choose you. And so when a consumer chooses us, we see strong retention. And it's all truly connected. But if I had to prioritize in retention, the onboarding experience is everything. When you become a member or a client or whatever world you're in for the first time and you transact, like, that's not truly what starts the journey. It started before that, but being a part of the brand starts then. And if you don't lock someone in early, get them comfortable, get them engaged, and more importantly, get them seeing the value, then you're already behind. And so that's why the first 14 days are so, so important. So we focused heavily on, and again, in our world, in booking their next class before they leave,
Mm,
you
mhm.
know, early follow up and touch points. Creating connections with coaches and staff is really, really important because you're building
Yeah,
habits, right? And you're building them quickly. And if they don't integrate early into our system, the churn risk just goes up,
yeah.
and it goes way up. So I think if I had to prioritize one thing, if you're in a membership model of any kind, I would say the first 14-day standards matter the absolute most, and they heavily, heavily influence your short-term retention, but also your length of stay and your long-term retention of your member or of your client. Again, going back to also human connection as well. So having the systems and standards in place, but also having the team that builds rapport, right? That people look
Right.
forward to seeing at 5 o'clock in the morning in my space. Not
Woo.
everybody wants the alarm to go off at 4 a.m., but if they know they're going there at 4 a.m. and they're gonna see, you know, Monica behind the front desk, sometimes those are the things that get people out of bed. But I couldn't agree more. I
It's
think
so true.
staff or not staff retention, also very important, but member retention in our space is so important.
Yeah. So they come in, they have an amazing experience. They try it out, they sign up. You all are taking care of those first 14 days. How do you make sure, and you mentioned it earlier, like creating scalability, consistency, you're not relying on that one killer performer coach. I think
Mhm.
of Soul Cycle. They ran into
Mhm.
this. I think of Peloton. They've ran into this and continue to. Unfortunately, it's not looking like a great story there, where the company or studio surrounds itself, their success is predicated on that one coach, that one performer. Now, we love our performers. We love our coaches. They bring so much value. Yes, there's fanatics. They're going to follow them everywhere. How do you protect against that? And you kind of mentioned it that the rest of your crew, like Monica at the front and some others are touch points. How do you make sure it's not a personality dependent type of member?
Well, I think it goes just again, very simple systems over individuals. And I don't
Mhm.
say that to make it sound like people, obviously don't matter in our world. Oh my gosh, they matter the most. But individuals need to have systems in order to function and to be successful. And what I know and what I feel is that, we have a team of people who want to win, but it takes a lot wanting to win. They have to have the playbook and they have to know the plays. They have to practice the plays. They have to stumble over themselves a little bit. But again, this is where the leadership layer really comes into play, is being able to hold individuals up. So we build processes that don't really rely on one human being
Mm,
great. It includes things like sales scripts, onboarding flows. Sally is a new member. These are the steps in which she follows. Like we've really simplified the structure of it all to not overcomplicate it. And then in the grand scheme of things, it really just comes down to leadership expectations, like I'm not managing those onboarding flows in the seat that I sit in today. I once did many, many years ago. And so the expectation for our leadership team to again protect the standards, I think I said it earlier, is something that the team hears me say a lot. And look, great people help. Great people make all the difference, but the
yeah.
system has to work without them. And if they weren't there, and it was a brand new team member, they're not great yet when they first come on your team. They need to learn your culture. They need to know your expectations. Some may be coming from outside of your industry. So they're technically not like great yet. And that's where the systems really come into play because without the systems, they can't learn, they can't become the experts. And in our world, we say the fitness professionals without having all of those systems in place. So for us, it's systems over individuals, and then let the individuals shine through the systems, assuming that they take personal responsibility and accountability for also being a part of the process, right? Like you also can't have individuals on the team that can't follow the process. And so I think it's also important to know when you have the right individuals on the team and when you have those that may be amazing people and great humans, but just don't fit into the
Sure.
day to day and the level of expectation that you have to create this dynamic member experience that is a non negotiable in our world.
And I believe when you say it, no, you do not budge from it. I like it. I love it. Good.
Mm-mm.
So let's switch gears a little bit here. I'm very curious because I hear the emails and the dings. You're a very busy leader, and I'd love to, if you don't mind, as much as you want to share, because I'm sure people out there are curious. Because I've read the articles, I've listened to the panels, I've seen the posts. I'd like to get to learn more about you. And I think everyone would agree with me there. Walk us through the day to day. Like, what's going on this morning? What does this look like? How has it been? This is a family build as well. How has it impacted your family? Like, just walk us through the real raw, the highlights, but also maybe give us some of the battles, the scars.
Like no day is ever the same, right? And I think a lot of business owners and franchisees would tell you that. But I think that's what makes our world so special is that we're not on stop, start, repeat. And it's one
Yeah.
of the things I love the most. You're right. This was a family passion project. Right. We had one child when we started this and he was a little baby nugget and
Mm,
now we have two and they've grown up in our business. And that was
yeah.
really important for my husband and I
I
for
saw
them to
one of your
see and be a
pictures
part
when you
of.
were seeing the front door. That was so
Yeah.
cute when they were a little baby
Yes.
and then now they're big.
Yeah, we celebrated 10 years in
I
December
love
of this
that.
beautiful studio. And 10 years ago, he was helping me unlock the door and we recreated the photo, much
So
larger
cute.
kid these days.
Yeah, yeah.
But, our family is a part of it. And we scaled to the extent that we did as a small family unit, managing and running and owning our studios in Cleveland. And even when we transitioned over to Thrive in 2023, where we became a larger platform and a larger system, and we brought in family office and we did all of that. And we had other local ARs come into our space. It was the same thing though. It needed to be that family dynamic for us.
Mm, mm.
Because that's where like the raw conversations and all of those things happen. And remember, we created Thrive in 2023. We were still navigating out of, the hit that
Pandemic.
we took during
Yeah,
COVID. We
yeah.
hadn't fully recovered. We were acquiring studios, and so it had to be a team of people that were truly focused on support and growth, not just pressure. Um, and that's the day to day. I mean, emails. I think one of the things that I value the most in my day to day is that not only am I focused on Thrive, which is my number one priority aside from my family, is being a part of the Franchise Advisory Council and really supporting the Orange Network as a whole is something that is really, really
Yeah.
important to me. And so some of my day to day, depending on the day, is focused on giving feedback and collaborating with lots of other franchisees on what's working and what's not, being an advocate for the franchisees, but also listening and seeking to understand from the franchisor, right? And building a synergy between the system and the franchisor. And we have, I'm fortunate to say that there's a really great relationship of honesty and transparency that we can have difficult conversations and go, what just happened and why are we doing this? And on
Yeah.
the flip side, like we just came out of saying, wow, we had a great Q1 and celebrate how great it was
Those are the
and build the
best.
momentum. Yeah, look, I mean, I make my mistakes just like everybody else, but I think hopefully as we make them, we learn from them and it's not stress, right? Like people go, how do you balance it all? And I'm like, you got to love what you do and you got to find the passion behind it and understand like where it's moving you to. And I don't mind all the dings. You got to know when to mute them and turn them off. But my team also respects my time away. And that to me tells me that I have the right people in place. Like when you can remove me from the business and allow me to focus like I have had to over the last 2 weeks. I've been traveling a lot the last 2 weeks. I have not seen my team face to face in 14 days and they are still doing great things and moving the needle and making decisions and driving results. It tells me that we've got something special going.
Because of those systems, consistency team right there. That's C. I
Yeah, the
love it.
C word, my favorite
The
C
C word,
word.
there it is. So I work with a lot of multi-unit portfolios, and they're in these growth phases where they're considering some type of a capital injection, family office, private equity, or what have you. What's your advice to them as you go through it and you look back, once you guys became Thrive, what were some of the things that you learned that one, you'd say, you know what? I'd keep that the same if I can go back. Or two, as much as you can share, of course, but probably would have given that a little bit more thought now that I know, or I would
Mm.
have changed this now that I know. What would that be?
Well, I think first and foremost is if you're a multi-unit operator and you're considering scaling and obviously looking at private equity or family office or looking for capital in order to grow, I think before you even get there, you have to sit down and you have to determine what you want the future to look like. Like, what are your non-negotiables? And like, because you now become part of a larger team and you now have other stakeholders that have
Right.
influence, right? And so that's why I could not rave enough about, the team that is supporting Thrive. We've navigated highs and lows, and through both of those situations, they were a level of support. And that's ultimately what I was looking for when I created Thrive, was
Mhm.
having individuals that I would consider partners on my team. And so there were certain characteristics that I was looking for, and I had to determine what those were before I even got into the conversations. Because once you get into the conversations, you're on it's not even a merry-go-round. You're kind of like in a tornado of there's so much going on. There's so many conversations that you can get lost. And it's important to stay grounded in what you want to achieve and just making sure that the individuals that you're bringing into that dynamic are on that same team, because things can get really bumpy. Now, granted, I've
Yeah.
never been a part of a system that I said, damn, I made the wrong choice. I'm fortunate enough to say that it was 18 months of creating Thrive. It didn't just happen overnight, it took a while. So I would say they get grounded in what you want the future to look like, what your timeline is. Be impossibly possible is kind of like how I function. I read this great book, and since I read The Art of Scaling, it really influenced how I think about goals.
Sort of
I've always been
scaling.
really bullish. Yeah, I've always been really bullish on goals, right? Sometimes to the point where my team is like, Steph, are these doable? And the answer is yes, they're doable with effort and consistency. And so making the impossible possible is it, and shrinking the timelines. So I also have that mindset around acquisitions and in those conversations with investors. But you got to stay tried and true to who you are and what you want the future to be like and look like, and make sure that you're on the same page. What happens when you have to remodel a studio? What happens when cash flow gets tight? Who's going to lean in? And understanding all of those things before completing the transaction, in my opinion, is really important. That you can navigate the
So,
highs, but you can also navigate the lows.
yeah, good call. Love that scenario-based planning, future forecasting. And so when you went from your portfolio to family office, and then even now, as you're going through and have gone through some M&A, some acquisitions, what does that due diligence process look like? Like, how was that when you were going through it? And then now that, are you still part of that, or is that more you have a team for that to kind of go in and start?
Yeah. So I'm fortunate enough to have a team, however, still very much a part of the process. So I think first and foremost, everything starts with one question for me. And for me is, does this make the platform stronger? Is it accretive? And if I can't say yes, then I'm a little bit more hesitant to approach that acquisition.
Yeah.
If I can say that this acquisition will make our platform stronger, then we move forward. And so what do I mean by stronger? I think it goes much deeper than just, is it profitable today? We're really looking about how it fits into our portfolio in the markets that we're in, right? Geography is really important for us because we're very hands on. So being able to easily get to our studios and lean in and be present and have them know us and see our face is really important. But the financial standpoint is really where we evaluate. So we clearly look at four wall economics, right? We're looking at
Mhm.
revenue, we're looking at EBITDA, we're looking at the margin profile and where there's opportunity to expand. We have really good systems and standards in place. And so
Excellent.
some of the studios that we acquire have good systems and standards in place. And quite honestly, some have had none. And so, looking at trend lines and those things, not just snapshots, is really important. We're a membership based model. So we're really looking at membership trajectory. We're looking at, we talked about it, right? We talked about retention. What has the attrition been? Different markets have different price points. So we look at pricing integrity. Are we priced in the right tier for the market that we're in? And where systems and processes truly shine for us is on the cost structure. We've created some strong labor efficiencies. Rent is always a thing. And in some cases, in acquisitions, is there the opportunity to re-engage with the landlord and maybe renegotiate rent as
Good
it
for
sits
you.
currently with, percentage to revenue? Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. And so when we're not, like, what does the long-term viability of the studio look there on a 5 or 10 year franchise agreement? And then I think one of the last ones we look at when in our space in acquisition is the CapEx requirements, right? I talked about clean and studios in one of our non-negotiables, but just as much as like the surface level is important, the infrastructure in the studio is equally
Yeah.
important, right? Like good
Functionality. Yeah.
treadmills and like things in good condition. So, what needs to be invested in from an equipment standpoint or from a remodel or a tech standpoint, if that franchisee hasn't been, and likely they haven't been, right? Like they're looking to sell. They might have been in a really distressed state and they just didn't have the money to be able to invest, not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. And so we carry that burden as we acquire because it is a non-negotiable for us, not just a franchise or expectation. It's also how we operate as a franchisee. So, how is that going to impact, the near term returns, X amount of studios, 2, 3, 4 studios? But the biggest piece for us is modeling. And that's where I have a really dynamic team that they're colleagues of mine. They work alongside me and they really go through a pretty intensive modeling. We underwrite every deal based on how it looks after we operate it, not how it's currently being run. So we do both.
Excellent.
It's being ran this way, but when
Wow.
we can fold in all of our systems and processes and we can pressure test it, how is this business going to run with us being the operators? And so we look at it from both lenses. And so that's why I'm really fortunate to have a team behind me that can help model that out. So then that way we can. That's what I mean by does this make our portfolio stronger?
Yeah.
And after we do that, then the answer is game on.
Let's roll.
Let's roll.
Confidence in the systems, confidence in the platform. Stephanie, this is super impressive. I knew you're going to drop a lot of gems, and I feel so lucky. I got to throw this in here. I feel so lucky because, like I said, I did my homework. I've been following you for quite some time. I will say, this is why I do what I do. I love this long form because I get to learn, I feel like, get to learn so much more than what I could get in an article. And you are freaking impressive, man. This is awesome. I hope people stuck around this long and are getting all of this because you can go and take action today with a lot of the things that you're dropping or set yourself up for success. This is so good. Well, I haven't asked about or talked about Restore. So I've had Andrew Marlowe from Lindora jump on the show, Jess Sweefel from Miura, now X Health. We have Region Therapy coming on board. Oh my goodness, Dr. Arvin and team. Walk us through Restore. I mean, you clearly see this wellness piece blowing up right now. So you have Orangetheory Fitness, which cornerstone. It's going to continue to grow. And then you very, very bright. You see this wellness longevity piece definitely taking hold. What's your plans there with Restore?
Yeah, so we stepped into the restore space in 2020, actually. We bought our first license in 2019, opened 30 days before the pandemic hit, which was totally different. It was totally different for me. I was like, holy cow,
Yeah.
what just happened? And the reason why we stepped into Restore was because we did see the synergy between both brands. And we knew that overall health and wellness included some, other therapies that, obviously we didn't provide at Orangetheory. We are still a partner in people in their longevity journey at Orangetheory because of the fitness component. However, there are other things that a lot of consumers that were very curious about and was being talked about on all of the social platforms. And so again, lots of noise in the system, but without a doubt, extremely beneficial to people's long-term health and just not just long-term health, but day-to-day function, how they function on a daily basis, how well they can go up the stairs, how well they can play with their kids. And so we looked at Restore Hyper Wellness and we decided, we met with the CEO at the time and he was wonderful. And we were like, this is a really good synergistic model and brand that can run in tandem with Orangetheory. Now,
Yeah.
Thrive does not own or have anything to do with Restore. That's just my husband and I. We have 3 locations in Cleveland. They're all very close to our Orange Theories. So they do
Smart.
like support each other with cross promotion,
Yeah.
but both are super focused on longevity, health, and wellness. And that's the space that we live in. We wanna help people on their live functionally on a day-to-day basis at their optimal levels. And we are a family business. Like we want people to be around as long as possible to be with their families. And it does require some of those extra steps to really truly take care of your vessel, which sometimes needs a little extra TLC
My
in
goodness.
different
I need a
ways
drip
to
right now. I need a drip
help
right
you be
now.
your best. Exactly. I'm getting on a plane here in a little bit and
Ah,
I'm gonna need a drip when I get home
yeah.
from being on so many planes the last couple weeks.
Oh my goodness, I bet. Well, this has been such a pleasure. Like I mentioned, so many gems and best practices, practical things that you can go
Mm.
do. So I really appreciate it and how you frame everything around culture, culture that's measurable, leadership systems and consistency, and how you can actually scale, leverage your platform, not just your single unit. So this is so good. For those that want to connect with you and learn more about Thrive Venture or even talk to you about Restore, Orange Theory Fitness, or just in general leadership, because you have a lot of things going on that are going really well. How can they get a hold of you? How can they find you?
Yeah, 100%. I love to connect with anybody. You can find me on LinkedIn, Stephanie Altenburger, or you can email me at stephanie@thrivevg.com.
Excellent. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And Stephanie, you brought up a lot of measurables, ratios, things around the finance side of things. We talked. So for those that are fitness and wellness operators that are wanting to get better at their cash visibility, or as Stephanie was going through unit economics, pricing, utilization models, or you just want to strengthen that finance engine, make sure to reach out to me at strategointel.com or always shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. Well, this has been another episode of the Owner Seat Podcast. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. And as always, our episodes drop every Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. Central. Stephanie, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I know you're very, very busy.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.